Hamlin wins, Harvick wins, Logano dumps Stenhouse, and the race for the last place into the playoffs gets even tighter. All this and more on the Bologna Burgers Cup Recap in under 5. Okay, so let's get to the first race at Dover. It was dominated by the Joe Gibbs racing cars, in specific Truex and Hamlin. And like I said, they dominated most of the race, but it did end up being a really good finish between Truex and Hamlin as Hamlin passed him with about 10 laps to go. So the finish of the race was really great. The only other big news out of that race was the last spot for the playoffs, where Matt Dibenedetto for the second week in a row dropped a bunch of points, tightening up that battle, and Jimmie Johnson actually raced his way in, and William Byron was the last one out. So those were the big takeaways from the first Dover race. Now let's get to the second Dover race. Second Dover race was once again dominated, but this time it was not Joe Gibbs Racing. Kevin Harvick took off and pretty much wore the field out for most of that race. Also of note in that race, Ricky Stenhouse got dumped on the early laps by Joey Logano, which could have playoff implications if Stenhouse doesn't make the playoffs by winning Daytona, which we'll get to in a minute here. But if Stenhouse doesn't make the playoffs and he holds that grudge going into the playoff races against Logano, this could get interesting, because if he dumps Logano and costs him the playoff spot going forward as the rounds get smaller and smaller, it could be a storyline there. Other than that, the race was not really significantly any more exciting than the first race, with the exception of Jimmie Johnson getting a speeding penalty and working his way back up, and then at the end of the race taking 2 tires instead of 4 and almost holding on and getting that second place. He ended up finishing third and tightening up the points, but the points flipped once again for that very last place. William Byron is back in. He is above Johnson, I think, by 5 points or so. And Matt Dibenedetto once again finished 17th this race. Not quite as bad as the first race, but he once again gave up a lot of points, and he is 9 points back. So the last 2 spots have 3 drivers within 9 points of each other going into Daytona, which we all know can be a madhouse. And somebody like, which could also get shaken up again, because somebody like Stenhouse or one of these guys that are really good at plate races could go steal that win. So 9 points separating the last playoff spot to get in, and potentially, the madhouse that is Daytona. Anything can happen. Anybody could win. Somebody can upset it. We've already had 2 people upset this year, not necessarily at Daytona, but Austin Dillon and Cole Custer snuck into the playoffs with a win. So you just never know what's going to happen. And that's all you really need to know coming out of the Dover Double. This has been the Bologna Burger Recap in under 5. Make sure you check us out Wednesday night on Facebook at 7:30, where we go live and we do our normal podcast. All right, until then, peace.